So look here, see, this is the Sony HT-A3000, and Sony soundbars have always sounded good, but Sony have really raised the bar when it comes to their A-series soundbar, particularly when it comes to connectivity, and that's why I believe this soundbar is a good sound investment for the future. And if you stick around, you'll see what I mean. And before we get into this video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on for more Sony tech reviews like this in the future. The Sony HT-A3000 standalone has solid specs. It's got a 3.1 speaker setup and there are 2 woofers either side of the center driver. So you get a decent amount of bass even without adding a wireless sub. And the central driver, the central channel on this soundbar is dedicated to delivering very clear vocals, and this is really important, particularly when it comes to movies and things like that where there's lots of music and sound effects. Sometimes on older soundbars dialogue can get lost, but not here, because with this design Sony have avoided that problem. And combining the HT-A3000 with newer Bravia TVs can unlock an exclusive feature, the Sony Center Sync. That's where your TV's acoustic surface acts as the center channel so that the soundbar can focus on everything else. But even without the center sync channel, the soundbar still sounds good on its own, and that's thanks to 5 amplifiers delivering 250 watts of power. That's equal to a body shot from Gervonta Davis, metaphorically speaking. But here's what's really interesting about this particular soundbar. It is its ability to emulate Dolby Atmos. And if you need clarification on what that actually means, typically speaking, a Dolby Atmos setup will have speakers in the ceiling. At home, normally what you see is upward firing drivers, but the HT-A3000 doesn't have either of those. But it does have Sony's very own vertical sound engine. But what it does have is Sony's very clever vertical sound engine software, which recreates that effect without actually having the hardware. So I can tell you from my own experience watching Dolby Atmos content with this soundbar without the rear speakers, the phantom speakers are very present up and to the left and up and to the right, and you can really notice them. It's not just a gimmick, and I tested this with VR as well, and that further proved that point. You can hear sound above your head. However, when you're playing VR and you've got your back to the speaker, you can tell you've got your back to the speaker, and really the only way to solve that is to add rear speakers, and we'll come back to that. So I have to say that immersive sound quality is very impressive, especially considering the A3000 is the most compact soundbar in the A-series lineup from Sony. And if you're wondering about the size and how this will look with a TV, I would say it's best matched with a 32-inch TV or up, and it can be wall mounted without having to buy an extra bracket, so that's always good. And if you do find that it blocks the infrared receiver on your TV, it does have an IR repeater built in as well. Now, in terms of design and styling, it's very minimal and very classic Sony. Classic being the key word here. Sony describes this as an omnidirectional block design, and it's got a really nice anti-reflective texture on the top and a solid metal grille on the front and rounded corners with ports at either side. The drivers are more rectangular than classic drivers, and Sony calls this X-balanced drivers. These offer a larger surface area and therefore should deliver more power. So on the surface of things, it is a very traditional looking soundbar. There's no mention of a bevel baffle board on this one though. And if you're wondering what a bevel baffle board is, I'll link a video at the end of this video and that'll explain everything. So now let's talk about the controls. The buttons are on the top and there's a simple OLED display that gives you a heads up as to what mode you're in. The remote is in the box and it's also a classic Sony design. This, just like the soundbar, has that omnidirectional block styling to it with all the buttons you'll need. And something that's quite unique to this soundbar is how Sony uses the HDMI ARC connection to not just receive signals from the TV, but also to send visuals to the TV in the form of pop-up on-screen menus and a full settings menu. And thanks to HDMI CEC, the remote for the soundbar can control your TV, and your TV control can control. But of course, this soundbar will work best with a Sony Bravia TV and Bravia Sync. And don't judge me, I don't have a Bravia at the time of this video. And here's another nice feature when it comes to controlling the soundbar. Let's say one day you lose your remote control down the side of the sofa, you can't be bothered to find it. You could download Sony's Music Center app which gives you full control of the soundbar over Wi-Fi. So that's a nice added feature you don't always see with other soundbars. Now here's the good news: regardless of what TV you have, as long as you have an audio return channel, you can connect the soundbar to your TV with just one cable. And if you have an enhanced ARC port, that means you can use the A3000 as part of a full Dolby Atmos 5.1.2 home theater setup, because enhanced ARC will allow the soundbar to receive the optimal signal required for Dolby Atmos content. Other connectivity options are available. For example, it does have an optical input and it does support Bluetooth 5.0 for music streaming, and you can even use LDAC, which could be a Klingon swear word, but actually what it is Sony's very own Bluetooth codec, and still one of the best methods for streaming high-res audio via Bluetooth to a device. But generally speaking, when it comes to music streaming, the best way to play audio to this device is over your home Wi-Fi network, your local area network. Once you connect this up, you can then play using Chromecast, AirPlay 2, and also Spotify Connect. And through Tidal, you can use Sony's Reality Audio Connect feature, and connecting this to your Wi-Fi opens up the door to AI in the form of Google Assistant and Alexa. No ChatGPT yet though. And if you want to keep things offline and stay off the grid, you can play high-res audio tracks to the soundbar locally via the USB-A port, which can read high-res formats such as DSD, FLAC and WAV, as well as the traditional more compressed formats like MP3. And if you are going to listen to lower res MP3 files, you'll be happy to know that Sony's own DSEE Extreme AI engine is here on this device, which means it can take those lower res file formats and upscale them closer to high res. Now listen here carefully. This is why I said at the beginning of the video that this soundbar might be a good sound investment for the future. It is the fact that you can add on all of the additional items to this to make it a Dolby Atmos system on day one, or you can do it as and when you're ready. And if you get the Sony HT-A3000 or any of the A series for that matter, there are two subs available: the compact SW3 and the larger, more powerful SW5, which is the one I have here. And let me tell you, if you want to create a sonic boom in your living room, you need to get one of these. And there are two rear speaker options available as well: the SARS3S, and these are great value for money, but the game changer is Sony's unique SARS5 speakers, because these RS5 speakers have forward firing and upward firing Dolby Atmos drivers. So this means that with the RS5 speakers, you can create a proper 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos home theater setup with two actual upward firing drivers behind you. So that is a standout feature, but it's not the only standout feature that the RS5 bring to the table. They do have their own power supply, which means they can be entirely wireless and run for up to 10 hours on a single charge. So this is fantastic if you don't want to run cables through your walls or up your walls. And I can tell you from my own experience setting up a home theater setup in this room, when it came to the rear speakers, I had two options: pay an electrician to fit two extra power ports in the corners of the room and channel cables into the wall for a nice, clean, tidy setup, or do the budget option, which is to run a horrible extension cable across the floor and use horrible trunking to put the cables on the wall. And times are hard right now, so I think you probably know what option I went with. So hopefully you get where I'm going with this. If I had had a Sony A series soundbar with RS5s, I would not have had that problem. And the great thing about the RS5s is when you're not using them, you can put them away. And something else that's great about them is the positioning of them doesn't have to be placed precisely, because Sony's spatial mapping feature can calibrate the sound using the built-in mics on the RS5 combined with the mics on the A3000 in order to map a sound bubble in your living room according to the acoustics and the layout of your specific setup. And if that doesn't sound like a good feature, I don't know what is. So here's what I think of the sound quality and what you will think of the sound quality. So let's say you've got a really nice TV and you think that the built-in speakers are pretty good. Well, the A3000 is going to blow your mind. If you've already got a 2.1 channel soundbar, which you've had for quite a while, the vertical engine that this has is going to be an eye-opener for you. And if your expectations are pretty high when it comes to audio, then you definitely should get the RS5s, because I actually heard those in action in Amsterdam when I went on a press trip with Sony, which I vlogged by the way, and I can tell you they sound pretty damn phenomenal. And listen here, if you're shopping around for the best Dolby Atmos solution from Sony that you can get, you should definitely check out the HTA9s, and in that video you'll also learn what a bevel baffle board is. That thumbnail's on screen right now. I appreciate you guys for watching this one, and if you check out that other video that's on screen right now, I'll see you in the next one. Don't be late.